It could be a guy sitting in his mom's basement. They could be a state waging war against. It gets more sophisticated where we've actually had spoofing attacks. People are getting smarter, but attackers are also getting smarter.
Exactly.
People are your strongest link as well as your weakest link. For example, when ransomware enters your system, you have to think like an attacker. You have to think from a cyber perspective as well now.
So how did you prepare for CISSP? Is there any suggestions that you want to give to a person who want to enter into consulting?
Right, every couple of days you have people getting laid off. You have people on LinkedIn kind of saying, yeah, today was my last day with this company. And at the end of the day, the company is loyal only to their investors. I would say it's 80% your communication and 20% your skill. Be open to learning and upskilling while you're also working with the client.
Hello everyone, welcome to the podcast. So in this episode 4, we'll be having a conversation with a cybersecurity professional who has more than a decade of experience in cybersecurity field. So he has started his own cybersecurity firm in which he's providing solutions as well. So let's look into his journey, how he started his career and how he started his own business. What are the challenges that he has faced in his journey? So let's welcome Kunal. Welcome to the podcast, Kunal.
Thanks, Raviteja. Thank you for having me.
So let's know about your journey in your own words. Can you say something about it?
Absolutely. So, Raviteja, I have like you mentioned, I have about 12 years of experience in cybersecurity. I started out as a consultant. I did consulting for about 8 years. In the course of these 8 years, I've had clients across US and Canada in various industries, insurance, banking, manufacturing, you name it. Did consulting, that kind of really set the stage and made my career and made me who I am today. Spent about 4 years in the industry after that, and now I'm here. I'm starting my own consulting company. I'm actually kind of sitting out as a solopreneur. So yeah, I mean, it's an exciting time in my career.
That's great, actually. Only few people can do that, right? That's to start their own business.
Yeah.
So coming to question, how did you transition into cybersecurity? I see you have done the bachelor's in different fields, and you have transitioned into cybersecurity.
Yeah, so I mean, I think, and again, it was just my bachelor's, and just since you bring it up, I have a bachelor's in English literature. I have a Bachelor of Arts in English literature. After that, I did an MBA in marketing. So I think at that point my career interests were very different. I wanted to become a journalist. I wanted to kind of go into the media industry. That was kind of where my interests were.
You're already in front of media, I believe.
There you go. 12 years later.
Okay.
So no, and that's so. But then kind of what happened is I moved to the US, and then around that time I realized the jobs aren't tech. If you want to have a well-paying career, the kind of the jobs aren't tech, and I always had a little bit of a technical bent of mine. So I decided to do my MS in Information Technology Management in the US. And then basically I got my first consulting job. I got it straight out of college. So I get in my last semester of my master's, I got selected as an intern. And then at the end of towards the end of my internship, they kind of took me on full time based on the work I'd done as an intern. At the consulting company where I worked with. I think I worked there for about 7 years before I moved to Canada.
So how did you got your internship? So is there any additional courses that you have done, or any certifications?
Well, I mean, this was during my college. So basically, I went to a college job fair. I went to a college job fair, and this was one of the companies who were there at the job fair. And I guess I made a good impression on whoever was at the table then. So, and then I remember after I joined, she told me, she's like, the moment you handed your resume and you talked to me, I made a note on the resume saying this guy has great communication skills. So definitely, he should at least be shortlisted for the initial interview. So she had kind of made a note there. And I didn't know this at the time. And then about, I think a month and a half or something, 2 months later, I get a call from this company saying, hey, would you like to, we are looking for an intern over the summer, and would you like to interview? And then kind of it just went from there.
Great. So I think communication is one of the important parameters in the job phase, I believe, right?
As a consultant, yes.
So apart from communication skills, what are the skills that you
So at that point, some of the skills that I had in my on my resume at that point in time was I'd done some programming during my college, so I built my own website. I had kind of built my own I had built my own systems, like your system analysis, systems design. So kind of I was able to, so that kind of I had a lot of technical hands-on experience, kind of doing that, writing macros, programming, a lot of kind of that's a lot of takeaways. That was one of the big takeaways that it got from my master's. But they kind of at that time they were looking, so they just saw the overall profile, right? Like this guy's done a, and obviously the good communication skills was something that was they already saw. They saw that this guy's done a little bit of everything, so he's not like a specialized, like this is all I know and this is all I do kind of. It was not that. So I kind of told him like I am open to learning, like this is what I've learned so far. But hey, I'm only what was I, like 24, 25 at the time? So I was like this is, but so I'm open to learning, like I'm open to learning and growing with your company. And so they saw the potential. I think they hired more for potential. And I think as an intern, I mean, even to your viewers who are starting out, in college looking for internship, companies mostly hire for potential. They kind of see a spark and then they want to see what they can help build you into. They're not, as an intern, you're not expected to be like the expert or like the SME, right? That's what you do over years of experience. But when you're just entering the job market, you need to give the vibe that you're open to learning and that you're like basically you're looking to absorb as much as you can in your experience with your company.
Right, that's a great suggestion, I would say, because even like in previous podcast that I've done, even that is what they said. Like we should be open to learning. If you're not ready to learn, that is where you are like really dead.
Right.
So that's a good session. Thank you for that. I guess like our followers will be helpful for the session. So how was your initial experience in IT security consulting?
So yeah, the initial experience was definitely it was a lot to take in, just because like the company I was working for, they were basically they were a cybersecurity consulting company, but they worked more like a startup, which meant like everybody was doing a little bit of everything. It also meant that like on a Thursday night evening or a Friday morning, I'll get a call from my boss saying, "Hey, we've got this new assignment starting on Monday." And I was in Michigan, so they're like, "Oh, you have this one new assignment starting on Monday in Atlanta." So and they're looking, and we have a new, say, DLP implementation going. Okay, a data loss prevention. So we have a new DLP implementation that we have a new client for, and you're on the job now. I've never touched DLP as a product before. So like I kind of had to learn, like I had to kind of spend the weekend getting spun up and then, fly out on Monday morning to Atlanta to the client to, and then, they're looking at, the client is looking at you as the expert, as the person who's telling them what to do. So, there's a lot you need to learn, I mean, obviously clients are not foolish. They're going to know if you're just if you don't know what you're talking about. And so there was a lot of that. There was a lot of pressure to because it was a new practice that was being spun up. So there was a lot of pressure to show some initial quick wins. So I learned, but that really helped me learn a lot, because I used to spend about, I don't know, like 11, 12 hours at work on a day. I was putting in weekends. So you're constantly in that mode. And again, like I said, it's like, because you're expected to do a little bit of everything, you're expected to learn new things. So that those kind of things, that was like a great, I think as an intern, that was a great experience. And obviously when I say I was an intern, I was also taking classes. Like I was in my final semester, so I had like one summer class, but like and I'm sure it's the way same in for universities in Canada, but like your summer and spring and summer classes are usually very condensed, because they don't go for a full semester, they go for half a semester, but you still get the same credits as like a full semester. So they're very condensed. So there's a lot of homework. So I was also dealing with I was also managing a lot of that in parallel. So that it was a great learning experience, but I think it's set, and at that point there were times when I was like, what am I doing? Like, is this really, I mean, this what's going on kind of situation? But I had an amazing mentor, and so I think it was totally worth it.
Is there any suggestions that you want to give to a person who want to enter into consulting?
Be ready to learn. Be ready to learn. And I think there's a couple of things that come to mind. There's because the thing with consulting is, every client is different, every assignment is different. What you did in your last project may not be the same as your next project. Also, you're only as good as your last project. So if I bombed my latest project,
Okay.
what I did the project before that doesn't really matter. Like, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of, so you don't have a lot of history to go by. Like, it's like you have to kind of make sure every project is a success. So like, you really have to have that, be comfortable with being outside of your comfort zone.
Okay.
Like, then that's kind of, there's a little bit of unpredictability there, because at the end of the day, you're on a contracted job. So, you have to do the best in that time.
True.
Hope that they'll maybe, if you do well, most of the times the client will probably extend you. So you will get, but then, also know that it's still, at the end of the day, it's not a permanent gig, it's still a temporary gig. So you need to constantly be open to learning and upskilling while you're also working with the client, because you just don't know what your next gig is going to be like. And you still need to be prepared for it. You need to prepare for it the best you can.
So like, even like a networking plays a major role here, right? Like, apart from like, a knowledge, you have to also have a good network in order to get
your network actually is, in consulting, to be successful, I would say it's 80% your communication and 20% your skills, because skills is something that, and I'm not downplaying the skills, I'm just saying that skills is something that you will have many people with the skill set. It's that ability to work well with others, to be able to kind of form that team dynamic with people you've just met, to be able to work towards that common goal. I think that's kind of something, that's a soft skill that it's going to hold you, it's going to set you up for success. The skills can be learned on the job, but but these are also soft skills that you need to bring in. At the same time, consulting is, I would say, not for everyone. Like, you need to, if you're just somebody who likes to just sit and do your own thing and just not interact with a lot of people, consulting is maybe not for you. But if you really enjoy working in that kind of a dynamic team setting, then I think it's a great place to learn and grow.
That's a great session for the people who want to enter into consulting.
Yeah.
And coming to the next one, like, you have worked in various companies, right?
Yeah.
Which one is, liked you more? So which is the company that you like the more?
At the end of the day, they're your clients. So, you can't, I don't know if you can have a favorite client, but I think for me, the projects that have stood out have always been the ones where kind of I was brought in at a time where things were really kind of a hot mess, dumpster fire. And then I was able to kind of come in, show my value right away, and help turn the project around. And those are kind of those are the projects I always remember. Even now I look back, there was a whole project that I was brought into where basically, at a very high level, the company was moving towards a card system, like the PCI DSS standard, right?
Oh, got it.
The payment card industry standard, where so they were moving towards like a whole different set of cards, and like they were looking to become more PCI compliant, which means they had to redo the entire the whole systems that where how credit card data is processed through the systems, because that project was an absolute mess. Like they were behind timelines. The project manager was struggling to understand where and I was able to kind of really come in, bring my value, and help them kind of turn that project around by building in reporting, building in checks and balances into the project management system, which kind of helped call out the key milestones, the key and have that all presented in a dashboard that could be put in front of the steering committee. And that project turned around. Like I came in, I was brought in like because I'd worked on a previous project with the same company and for the same client, and they kind of saw some of those skills in me, and then they brought me in for this kind of role. And then that was, I think, one of my favorite. I don't have a favorite client. That was one of my favorite projects because it was a high visibility project. It was one of the top 3 projects. So it was one of the, like these big companies. They'll have like some projects are like it's an open checkbook where it's like we need to get it done. Like we don't care about the dollar value. Like we need to get it done. And this was one of those, right? So it was going up to the CIO. It was being reported up to the board. So, but I was able to come in, turn it around in a period of time, which I think was probably one of my most satisfying as a consultant. That was one of my most satisfying.
So is that like the first job that you did? Like you have worked in like I think 4 companies, right?
Yeah.
So which company culture that you liked more?
The first one, the company I worked for in the US.
Because that is where you got to next step, right?
I think that was kind of for me. It was, like I said, it was a much smaller company, so it was just you knew people on a personal level. So I used to go to my boss, like my boss. I've used to go to the CIO and the CO's house for Christmas dinner. Like I used to go to them for Christmas Eve. Like I've gone to like the CEO's kids' birthday parties and stuff. So like that was the kind of culture that company had. So we worked hard, but then we also had that people to people relationship outside of work. And I think those kind of just that. So for me, I still kind of look back the most fondly on that experience as an employee.
I think that's a great culture, like even for, with employees, like you're going to dinner and you're meeting them every time.
Right. I mean, and it was I mean, and that's kind of, that's where I learned because I had this, and I'm not somebody I'm not like an overly social person or something. But the thing is, these opportunities, these kind of social events also helped me learn more from these people. Like kind of, you kind of see how they think, you kind of see their work ethic. And you kind of, it's a lot of passive learning you do, and especially when you're just starting out in your career, it's a great it's a great experience, and it's a great exposure to have.
And you have direct contact to CIOs, right? Like
yes,
very few people will be having.
Yeah.
So like you have worked in US as well as Canada, right? So is there any difference that you found in working culture?
Not really. I think they're very similar. I think work culture wise, they're very similar. I mean, a lot of companies have operations both in the US and Canada. And I mean, you have people who actually, I used to live in Detroit. I used to live in Michigan. So that's right on the border from Canada. So you had actually people who lived in Canada in Windsor, and then they would drive down to Detroit to work, and then they would drive back home that same evening. So I mean, it's a pretty seamless. So even moving from the US to Canada was a pretty seamless transition for me.
So was there any impact in your career, like moving from US to Canada?
Actually, it was impact in a way. Probably not. And I'll tell you why. And I think I was very fortunate that way because we decided we want to move to Canada. I had that discussion with my boss. My company, like the company I work for in the US, they didn't really have any operations in Canada, so there was no way I could continue working for them from there. But my boss at the time actually knew somebody who was in Canada and who had just made partner at KPMG. So I just had like a half-hour interview with the person, and the guy was like, "Yeah, I like you," and he's like, "Just let me know once you're done with your PR, so then I would like you to come work for me. So we'll process your." So I fortunately was very. And again, it comes down to relationships, right? Like I built that relationship with my boss there, where he felt comfortable enough recommending me to somebody else. But I basically that's how I kind of moved to Canada, and like a week later I started at my new workplace. So luckily, I mean, and I don't think this is the norm. Like unless you have a company where you can just transfer internally and move, it's very hard to just start to just have that. But I feel like I was very lucky that way.
Yeah, because like even like referring to a person is very hard. Like only if I see a capability in you, only then they'll refer you, right? So that is where I think you got to the next step. So like right now you're doing a contract job, right? So what do you find the difference between full-time employee and contract? So what benefits that you find between these two?
I'll tell you why I kind of moved towards contracting, and maybe that will answer your question. So I moved towards contracting just because I wanted, I've been in the corporate world, consulted, worked in the industry for like more than about 12 years now. I felt like I wanted more autonomy over my own career, my own personal brand, so ultimately I think that was the key thing, that like one of the things that I moved towards contracting. And I've seen even when I was working, I've seen people actually make career out of contracting. Like they get a few years in the industry, and then they basically just they contract work, they make and they do great. Like they do great. And this was something that was always kind of in the back of my mind, that I wanted. This is something that I would like to do at some point. And then this year I just decided to go for it. I think the key thing is like more autonomy and more control over your work hours, what you want to do, what direction you want to take your career in. You get a little bit more of that. You get to also build your own brand. And I think also, like, if you look at from a taxes perspective, you save a lot, because when it's your own business, you get to the government is a little more they kind of encourage you to have be self-employed, so then you kind of save on taxes. So it just gives you more money gives you more money than you would be as an employee. So I think that was probably one more factor. Luckily, my wife is in a very well-paying. She's an employee. She's employed, and she's in a very well-paying position. So it's kind of like we thought it would be good, like where one of us has a steady income, and then one of us can do contracting. So even if there's a little bit of gap in between two gigs or something, we'll still be okay. We will still be okay.
I think that is where like people step into contracting, right? When you have a good paying job,
yeah,
that is where they jump into the contracting. So like few people, like the people who are in full-time job, they usually don't prefer to go, right? Because there are no benefits, or maybe like there is no secure job. So any comments on them? Like, what do you want to say anything to those people?
So I think if you look at what's going on right now in the world, right, every couple of days you have people getting laid off. You have people on LinkedIn kind of saying, today was my last day with this company. I was just called into like a 15-minute call, and then I was told I'm being let go, and I was asked to log off right away, right? So in my opinion, I think about 10 years ago, job security would have been a very valid argument. I think now I think job security is an illusion in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, right?
Okay.
Like job security is something that because again that can be taken away from you like that. Like you can have one bad quarter, one bad year for the company. Now suddenly they're making losses. They will need to kind of tell the investors how they're going to turn it around, and like somehow your name gets pulled out of the draw, and you're
Got
gone,
it.
right?
Yeah.
So there is a little bit of there so there's always, like, again, like if you have I'm not in any way trying to say don't do a full-time job. I mean that's what I've done all
That
my
is where the
life.
starting point is.
Yeah, so it gave me the experience and the skill set I needed to do something of my own.
Yes.
Right, but like job security wise, I think I feel like, and the other thing I would say is that I've also seen people where people spent like 20-30 years at the same company. So one day finally, when for whatever reason they were let go or whatever, they didn't know what to do next, because that's all they had done. So basically even their skill sets and everything were kind of based on what their old employer was doing. So they had kind of stagnated. It was very hard for them to then go out into the workforce and again find employment. So there is I the way I look at it is, treat your give your best to your employer, but also know that at the end of the day it's a transactional relationship. You have to look at your own best interest, just as your employer would look at what's best for the company.
True. Right.
So that's what I would say about your question about job security. About benefits and stuff, I mean, if like I said, in my case, my wife is working, so benefits is not an issue for me. I mean, you can still have your own benefits. You can still buy it from a third party. That's still, people still do that, right? Like it's not, but there's ways around it. There's options. There's ways around it. And
even I think in contracting, they'll be paying high, right? In contracting jobs.
Depends on your hourly bill rate and stuff. But yeah, you make, and plus, I think you work for CRA. Right?
Yep.
So you probably know this better than me, but then there's also things you can write off, because if you've got business expenses, there's a lot of things. So you get the government wants you to do this, so they're more happy to put more money back in your pocket. So I think in the long run, I feel like it works. But having said that, you need to be confident to do this. It's not for everyone to just say one fine day, like I'm going to leave the comfort of a full-time job and I'm just going to go into this whole sea of unknowns where I don't know where my next paycheck's coming from.
Got it.
So I will give you that. Like that definitely is you should think long and hard before making that leap.
Okay. So coming to the next one, like is it a good idea for a non-IT background student to transition into cybersecurity?
I would say yes. I mean, I'm an example of it.
Sure.
But also like my wife actually also made that transition a few years ago.
Into cybersecurity.
Okay. Because when we moved to Canada, she was actually working in the American healthcare sector when we were in the US. So she was, the industry and the skill set didn't quite transfer over in Canada. So she was kind of looking to transition, and she actually moved, and she did great. Like like I said, like you have to be open to learning. It's a lot of new information, new terms that you learn, but it can be done.
Got it. I think like in your house there are two cybersecurity professionals, and you'll be discussing about.
Yeah, we have been two different lines completely, but like those things do come up, and I would like to believe that I did play a part in her deciding to move careers. Like
got it. So, and like, how do you keep yourself updated with the latest technologies? Any platforms that you visit, or like any searches?
So Yeah, so like again, I have a bunch of certifications under my belt, cybersecurity certifications. So CISSP is one of them. So a lot of those certifications is basically you pass the exam, but you also have to have ongoing credits. So you have to keep training on an ongoing basis and gathering credits to make sure your certifications remain active. And I do that for like 4 major certifications. So I kind of I do a lot of intake. Like I try to absorb as much information passively. So I'm constantly I'm on listening to podcast, or I'm listening to Bright Talk is a great website for all things cybersecurity. Because a lot of true, a lot of those webcasts are actually product demonstrations, and they're trying to sell your product at the end of it, but it still tells you a lot about new technologies that are in the market. I do read a lot of white papers. I read a lot of ISAC and IC Square themselves have monthly magazines, which I make sure I read cover to cover. I follow a couple of good podcasts. That's kind of how I try to keep myself updated as possible, as updated as possible.
I think
and I keep trying to upskill. So I'm studying for a couple of new certifications as well now.
So how did you prepare for CISSP?
Oh, the CISSP was, and then I took the CISSP in 2017.
Okay.
So the moment I completed the 5 years in the industry, because you need to have 5 years, I decided I want to take it. And the CISSP at that time was like it. Now it's more of an adaptive test.
Okay.
At that time it was a 250 questions, 6-hour long exam. So people used to train like they used to train for a marathon, where they because they have to you have to keep your mental, you have to have build up a mental stamina to kind of pass that exam. So it was kind of a big deal. So for me, I actually I was studying for it after hours. So I would put in a full day of work, come home, and I was to study at night. My wife was in university at the time, so it would be like after hours. It would be like I'm studying for my CISSP and she's doing college work. And so I studied for it. Basically, I didn't have the time to really read the book cover to cover. I went through a couple of video trainings. I think they were 8-9 hours long, end to end. And then I was just kind of studying. I was just solving papers. I was just solving as many mock exams, and those are easily available. They're nothing like the actual exam, but they just give you that stamina to build up to actually go through that monster. So yeah, but I studied. I think it took me about 2.5 months to actually prepare for my CISSP.
So coming to what is the order that you maintain? So you have done up to 4 to 5 certifications, right? So what is the order that you followed?
I've done a couple of them. I've done the Security Plus. So for beginners, I would highly recommend the Security Plus and the Network Plus. These are your two. If you want to get into cybersecurity, these are your two really good beginner level certifications. I would highly recommend Cloud Plus, because a lot more companies are moving to the cloud. So definitely to the Cloud Plus. These are 3 certifications that I would say, and they're relatively pretty economical. They're not very expensive. And so you should definitely, these are 3 certifications that you start with. Now with me, I think the other good thing was I had also done a lot of certifications which were vendor specific. So Symantec was there, FireEye was there. So I'd done a lot of these certifications just because as a consultant, when you need to be billable, they like to see, they want to make sure that you're certified in a particular technology. So as a part of that, I used to also so I had done a lot of those certifications also, but now I think I also trained on RC Archer, which is one of the very major GRC tools. So I did a lot of those more, I would say, vendor specific kind of certifications and trainings. But then things like CISSP or the CRISC or the CISM or the CISA, these are all vendor agnostic. These are whichever industry you go to, whatever systems they're using, what you learn and these certifications will apply to any industry.
So anywhere. In the whole world, wherever you go, these certifications are valid.
Absolutely.
Great. So how are you contacting these people?
Yeah, so a lot of it is actually through people I've already met in the past. I've been, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn in terms of I've built a good network over time. So these are but plus I have people that I reach out to directly. I would highly recommend, and if you're in this in my doing something similar, highly recommend go with the LinkedIn business.
True.
Just because that gives you the freedom to actually reach out to people in the industry that you wanna speak to, like be it mentors, be it potential clients. It really gives you that freedom to reach out to people. Plus it gives you a lot of, there's like unlimited like learning material on LinkedIn Premium itself. So I'm using LinkedIn more as a tool right now.
Okay.
But like I also I'm gonna start like going more to like the ISACA chapter meetings and the SC chapter meetings, the Toronto chapter meetings and stuff like that. Just to, and again, this is just, I'm not saying it's going to have an immediate kind of gain, but I think this is just, you're just setting the stage for like to build those networks for the future.
Yeah, I think those events are really helpful where you can meet cybersecurity professionals. Even I went to Sector, like recently I went to Sector event where I also met, like CEOs as well. So we can directly contact with them and we can get information. Like even if anybody is searching for job opportunities, they can also go there and they can meet those people. They can communicate well, as you said. They can communicate well and they can showcase about their talent and everything. If they really like you, obviously for sure they'll be giving you the chance.
Correct. And it's like I said, like it's not like they may have something for you right away, but then at least you're sowing the seed that like if they need somebody with that skill set, they're going to think of you the first time. That they're going to think of you.
True. Agree. So they'll be having your name in the back of the mind.
Yeah.
So like coming to the job market, so when do you think it will be stabilizing? Because like a lot of people are laying off right now, right?
I mean, honestly I don't know the answer to that. Because I mean, we keep hearing that we are going to go into a recession as a result of that fear or paranoia, we still have a lot of people actually actively doing layoffs before we kind of go into that downward trend. So I think I mean, it's going to take a while. I think it's going to be, this year is probably going to be tough before things start settling in. And I think this is all a cycle, Raviteja, because in 2020, when COVID hit, people suddenly realized, oh, we can like hire as many people because we are not in the physical, like we can hire somebody sitting far away as well because everybody's remote.
True.
So companies went and hired more than they needed, and now suddenly they are kind of realizing that, wait guys, we can do the same stuff with lesser people. Now you add something like AI into the mix, where suddenly the use cases of AI are now, there are new use cases coming up every day, new websites coming up every day, which basically can do the job of a specialized person for one third of the cost, 1/4 of the cost. So you kind of have two things happening at the same time, in my opinion. Like one is obviously people kind of now moving away from COVID. Now there's a forced return to office. Now they realize, okay, we don't need so many people to do the job. Profits are running low, so we need to let's cut some people. And then you've got this whole AI, which can actually, if it continues to develop the way it is, it's going to take away people's actual, like it could potentially take away people's jobs. Like think about it, right? ChatGPT can kind of write code in HTML or CSS today. You go to a website like Canva, it can design a website for you or product for you, which you would be paying somebody like for weeks and months in hours. So there's just so many use cases coming up, and I think that's kind of this is kind of the industry is going through like a crunch for that reason. It's getting hit from both sides, and at the end of the day, the company is loyal only to their investors and the stakeholders. They think cutting you is going to help them increase their bottom line and make the investors look good and they're going to do it, right? So I think for me, it's going to take a while because, and the reason I say that is AI at this time right now, there's a frenzy. Everybody's going crazy over AI and what it can do. But it's going to take a while for it to stabilize, where people can be like, people will come to the realization that no, it cannot replace humans. And then suddenly they're going to start rolling back a little bit and pulling back and saying, okay, we need more people in the office.
Got it. So like, do you think there is any effect on cybersecurity, like AI? So do you think there is any effect?
There's a lot of, I mean, so the thing is, AI is doing a lot of things that you would have somebody at a screen looking like, and I'll give you an example, right? CrowdStrike. CrowdStrike is it's a behavior-based tool, right? Though what CrowdStrike does, like for ransomware, now for ransomware, for example, when ransomware enters your system, it's gonna basically, if you click on the link, it's gonna start multiplying and it's gonna start locking up files.
Got it, worms.
Right. Now, the thing is with something like CrowdStrike, the moment it sees CrowdStrike detects some kind of an activity, which you would have somebody looking at the screen as an analyst to look at that, find it out, triage it, this, that. CrowdStrike is actually going to go detect that activity and lock that thing lock that part right away and limit the damage, right? So those kind of roles I feel are going to be more heavily impacted. Roles that need more human thinking, human experience, human, at the end of the day, let's be clear, AI, and I'm not an AI expert, but AI looks at what information is already there.
True.
It's information that's in the public domain that it draws its source out of. But there's a part of it that humans can think that maybe AI cannot think, things that have not happened. So I feel like the more higher level roles, which are more logic based, reasoning based, I think those roles will still kind of continue to be there, but they'll be fewer. But they will still. But I definitely see an impact in it, and the only way I would say you need to kind of prepare yourself for that kind of a thing is try to upskill as much as possible. Like, try to upskill. Don't just be happy that today you have a skill set today which is in demand, and that you can and then don't kind of get complacent there. Just try to upskill as much as possible, and try to have side hustles, try to have side sources of income. Like, don't just rely on a salary, or because if one day that stops, you should still have something else to keep you going.
True, yeah. So that's a good session about like AI.
Yeah.
We have discussed a lot about AI. So how did you came up with the word called cyberthink?
So it was actually that's an interesting question. So cyberthink solutions. I mean, the way talking about cyberthink, it's basically, to me, people are like, in cybersecurity, people are your strongest link as well as your weakest link, right? I mean, if you have a culture which is risk aware, which is like, which is kind of aware of the threats that we have, and it's much easier to kind of safeguard yourself. You can have the best technologies, the best systems, the best DLP, the best firewalls installed, but if you have a person who doesn't think twice before clicking the wrong link, all of that is for nothing. Right? Yeah. So for me, cyberthink was, I was like, what, you need to always think as a security professional, where you need to think, and you, if not maybe not as a security professional, but as an attacker. Like, what, like, if I see a link or an email that I see that I don't recognize, that's saying, hey, you've got this bill pending of $100 from Amazon or whatever, and you click on it, you know what, like that. So that's a human element. So for me, that's what I thought of. Like, at the end of the day, holistically, and that's, that's kind of, I use that in my brand statement as well, that I want to provide holistic solutions, which is not just technology based, but like help you mature your control environment and your culture. So it has to be part of your thinking process. So that's where kind of the cyber thing came from. People are getting smarter, but attackers are also getting smarter.
Exactly.
So the same tricks that worked 10 years ago will not work today, but attackers know that. So now it gets more sophisticated, where we've actually had spoofing attacks where kind of we had people get emails that looked like they came from within the company, where they had actually spoofed the email and made it to make it look like the domain name was the same as the company, and it came from the CEO saying, hey, can you please send me this file? And it came to a person. Now this person's in a very difficult situation. They're like, they don't, the email looks legit, but then that, and so then they have to escalate it. They have to send it to the managed services, the SOC, and then have them kind of look at it, right? But then people are getting smarter. Technologies are getting smarter. So yeah, I mean, it's like like I said, people are your most important. They can be your strongest link or your weakest link. So it's very important to have that culture, that risk culture.
True, because and even like employees are the weakest link of the organization, right? If they do any mistakes, there you go.
And it's always, it can be unintentional. It can be unintentional, but I'm not saying any like people are everybody's malicious, but it can just be as unintentional as saying, I want to work on these files at home because I want to get work done, and since I can't, so I'm just going to send this email full of confidential information to my personal email ID. It can be something that, like, it's not the person, like, not like the person meant to harm, but then again, the impact of that could have been catastrophic, because if your email ID is non-encrypted, like if you're using like an AOL kind of email ID, which does not have adhere to the latest encryption standards, that email going out could be intercepted on the way, and then you could face a breach. So there's just so many threat vectors that you need to always think about. That's why the cyber think, right? You have to think like an attacker. You have to think from a cyber perspective.
You're thinking like that.
Yeah.
So like, what's your opinion on the importance of referrals? So do you think it's really adds weightage to your profile?
100%. 100%. Especially if you're looking now, if you're applying for jobs, like if you're in the job market right now, you see any job, like 100 applicants is minimum. Any job you look for, 100, 150 applicants is minimum. You can't expect like the HR to go through every resume, or the ATS to go through every resume and find the perfect candidate, right? Like there's something that can get missed. A good candidate could get lost in the mix and not even make it to the next round. A referral, what it does for you is it kind of says somebody in the company can vouch for you, and then then that kind of gives you that added weight, that gives you that one little bonus point in your favor, because it's going to make sure that it's more likely that your profile or your resume will get noticed.
So for example, let's say I want to apply for cyber think. So what do you look into that person? What factors that you look into?
Depends on the role that I would be hiring for. But I think for me, the key things, and skills can be taught. So skills can be taught, right? But I think one is you have to be willing to learn. No matter what your experience level, you have to always be willing to learn. I'm still learning. I'm still learning new things as I go. You have to be willing to learn, and you should be easy to work with. Like you have to be easy to work with. I have to feel comfortable. Like I should not have to feel like I'm walking around eggshells with you. Right? So we're walking on eggshells around you. Like so I think those are the two key things. I would obviously look for, again, people who think of cyber as a culture. It's a way of life in today's world, unfortunately. With the kind of with the world we live in, cyber attacks are a reality. They could be a guy sitting in his mom's basement. They could be a state waging war against you. Right? So it could be at the so you have to have that thought process of what are we up against here. And I think in general, you always want to work with people who leave things in a better condition than they found them. Like I may not be with this company for more than a year, but I want to see a person who, when he comes in, makes an impact where he leaves the company, he does something for the company where we are like, what, we are better off for it. So I think those are some of the key things I look for. I mean, these are the things that I think around various stages of my career that people saw in me, which is why I got the opportunities that I did. And so that's kind of something I would like to carry forward.
So like, coming to the situation, like for example, I want to connect to a person in LinkedIn. So how should I do that? Like a professional, how should I connect with that professional, and maybe like he will be get back to me? So what things that I need to like? So should I email a big like what do you think about it?
So we'll talk to you two use cases.
Okay.
One is somebody who's at an executive level in a big company.
Okay.
Right. So somebody you're looking to for possible mentorship or for potentially a job.
Okay.
And two, you're reaching out to a recruiter.
Okay.
So these are the two scenarios. So in the case of somebody who's at that level, who's at an executive level, I think what you need to kind of tell them, and then again, not everybody's going to respond to you.
Agreed.
Right? But I think you need to reach out to them and kind of tell them what it is that you're looking for. Okay, be very clear.
Okay.
Right? Don't kind of say, let me say I'm just reaching out to make a connection, and then next thing I know, I'm bombarding them with messages saying, hey, can you please hire me?
Got it.
So be very clear that I'm looking for a mentor. I'm looking for a mentor to kind of bring me, because this is the stage of my career where I'm at. This is what I've done. And I'm looking for a mentor to take me to the next level. So like, have your elevator pitch ready of what you bring to the job, of what you bring, to that other person, and what are you looking for from them? Are you looking to help them help you get a job in their company, or are you looking for like mentorship and guidance? Okay. So I think directness helps in that case, because then they know for a fact that whether they want to spend more time talking to you or not. Right. And I say that because I've been on the other end of it. Like I've been on the other end of it, where yeah, like it's not, I mean, I've had people like, who, and then this is a different, maybe like, I've had vendors who reach out to me and they're like, hey, just looking to grow my network, and then next thing I know, I'm getting flooded with requests to come in for a demo, requests to, can you please, I'm looking to build, can you please refer us to people within your company for this product, and it gets to the point where I have to block them. Like I have to just, because after I've said no, that's not what I'm looking. I accepted your initial connection because I thought you were looking to build your network, but I'm not gonna, I'm not in a like at a point where I want to help you. So you kind of, if people who genuinely want to help you, they are gonna tell you like either yes, they'll accept it or no. If it's a no, you move on. If it's a yes, congratulations. The other thing is with recruiters, because I'm sure a lot of your viewers would be looking to kind of reach out and get jobs, and I think with the recruiters it's also the same thing. Don't just reach out to a recruiter saying, hey, do you have a job for me? Please let me know if you have a job for me.
Okay.
Like, right? So this is kind of, you just need to kind of say who you are. You need to say what is your experience and what kind of jobs are you looking for in which areas, right? To try to be as specific as possible. And then maybe kind of reach out to them once and maybe follow up one more time.
Okay.
Don't kind of, so because if they've not responded to you the second time, then chances are they're not going to respond to you a third time. So I think that's how I approach it, right? Like, I mean, at the end of the day, you don't want to come across as desperate. You want to come across as somebody who's looking to get something from the other person, but there's also something you bring to that person that is valuable to them. So that's how kind of I would approach.
Got it. And even the message should be crisp, right? It's not that you have to send like 2 to 3 paragraphs.
Like not more than one paragraph, not more than, I would say, 5 lines, 5 or 6 lines.
Okay.
And I think that's enough. I think that's long enough. If you can do that, that's 5 to 6 lines is enough. And like I said, I will go back to saying that if you are in the job search, do not just first is LinkedIn is the best aggregator platform for jobs.
Agreed. Yeah, true.
Okay. 2, do not just rely on the free version. There's a lot more value in the premium version, and I'll give you a couple of examples. Right. LinkedIn has a lot of AI functionality where sometimes people hit a block, like, what am I supposed to say to this person? Like, I know why I want to reach out to him, but how do I put it down on paper? They have an AI option where, based on what you want to do, they can actually create an initial draft, and then you can tweak it. There's a lot of good information. People write long LinkedIn posts. If you're the kind of person like who doesn't have the time or the attention span to read through it, there's like, okay, there's a AI button that says what are the key takeaways.
Got it.
So it'll give you like like 100 word or like 200 word post. It's going to give you in like 10 to 20 words what the person's trying to say. It's a great, and plus you've got endless learning. There's a lot of LinkedIn learning resources. You obviously, when you complete a training, you can put that as a certificate, kind of help build up your profile. So I would highly recommend go for the premium. Don't just rely on the free version to get you a job, to help get you a job. There's a lot more value to be had. So that would probably be a big
but I think that's a great suggestion. I think like all our followers, maybe like they'll be starting their like premium, and they'll be connecting different people to get the job. So even like whenever people contact me asking the jobs, I usually tell them to go to the LinkedIn, and that's where you have to connect with people, right?
Yeah.
Because that is where I got my first job.
Yeah.
So that is the reason, like, I never leave LinkedIn, and that is where I contact people.
Yeah, and when you go for the premium, you have more of, you can reach out to people directly, because with the free version, I think you have to have them accept your request before you can message them and stuff.
Yeah.
Here you can kind of, you obviously you have a limit, but you can still take that initiative and reach out to people, and so that it makes you a little more proactive. You're not just waiting for somebody to accept your request so you can message them.
Got it.
Stuff like that. So.
And we are in the end of our podcast. So is there any suggestions that you want to give to students or professionals who are entering into cybersecurity, or anything that you want to share?
Definitely be open to learning. Your college unfortunately teaches you skills, but there's a lot that college and school don't prepare you for. So always be open to learning and growing. Again, like, if you want to get into cyber, you need to think like an attacker. You need to kind of always have that mindset, because at the end of the day, you may be kind of in a a blue role, like
Okay.
so there is a blue team, red team, and purple team.
Yeah,
So
purple
you may
team.
be in more of a blue team kind of a role,
Mhm.
and I'll let your viewers go and find out what's red team, blue team, purple team. But but if you're even if you're in a passive role, you
Mhm.
still need to kind of stay ahead of the game by thinking about how some the bad guys would be thinking. So
Mhm.
always have that always kind of have that in the back of your mind, because
Mhm.
that will help trigger a lot of the learning that you will do as a cybersecurity professional.
Got it. So thanks for suggestions and thanks for accepting my invitation.
Yep.
So that's the end of the podcast. If you're not subscribed to my channel, please do subscribe to my channel and please share the video. Thank you.